In this video, we're going to learn about this crazily cool phenomenon called starch retrogradation, which is able to make foods like white bread and white potatoes healthier. When this study found a link between boiled potatoes and an increase in diabetes risk, doctors were rightly cautious about recommending white potatoes as part of a healthy diet. And it's likely due to their extremely high glycaemic index. And in fact, a top doctor in the UK urged everyone to avoid them. But this study was a bit of a game changer, as the researchers found that if you boil potatoes and then put them in the fridge to cool, some of their starch crystallises into a form that can no longer be broken down by the enzymes in our gut. In fact, allowing potatoes to cool caused a nearly 40% lower glycaemic impact. And if you prefer them hot, you can just reheat the cold potatoes and maintain this effect. Now, of course, when it comes to refined white carbohydrates, we don't recommend you eat any amount. But just out of curiosity, do those findings apply to things like white bread? Well, amazingly, this study found that if you freeze white bread and then toast it, it significantly lowers the blood sugar response. And what's happening is that process I mentioned at the beginning called starch retrogradation, which is basically where, when we cool starchy carbohydrates, it causes the carbohydrate chains to sort of realign themselves, which increases the amount of resistant starch. And this starch is more resilient to the enzymes our body uses to break down carbs. This also means less calories end up being absorbed and the glucose response is reduced. But what about pasta? Well, a research team from the BBC did a really cool experiment in 2014, where volunteers randomised to eat either hot, cold or reheated pasta on different days. On one day, they got to eat the pasta freshly cooked and hot. On another day, they had to eat it cold, after it had been chilled overnight. And on the third day, they got to eat the pasta after it had been chilled and then reheated. On each of the days, they also had to give blood samples every 15 minutes for 2 hours to see what happened to their blood glucose as the pasta was slowly digested. And what happened was remarkable. As expected, the cold pasta led to a smaller spike in blood glucose and insulin than eating freshly boiled pasta had. But then they said, quote, "We found something that we really didn't expect. Cooking, cooling, and then reheating the pasta had an even more dramatic effect, or to be precise, an even smaller effect on blood glucose. They found that it reduced the rise in blood glucose by a massive 50%. They went on to say, this certainly suggests that reheating the pasta made it into an even more resistant starch. It's an extraordinary result and one never measured before. We've made a brand new discovery and it's something that could simply and easily improve health. We can convert a carb-loaded meal into a more healthy, fibre-loaded one instead, without changing a single ingredient, just the temperature. In other words, our leftovers could be healthier for us than the original meal." Next, we'll hear what happened to participants who ate baked potatoes for 12 weeks in this fascinating study.